say. I think we always skip it, actually. Jeff would know if we ever used to say it in the past. But right before the prayer for our country and the prayer for Israel, the prayer for safe return, is a prayer for the congregation. And I think it's appropriate on this night of the annual meeting to say a prayer not only for our congregation, but for all congregations here in the United States and around the world, that this coming year and the years ahead will not only be one in which the dreams of our strategic plan are realized, but in which we will feel safe and cared for. Misha Beirach Avatenu Avram Yitzchak V'Yaakov V'Imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel Leah. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless this entire congregation, together with all other holy congregations, them and their families and all that is theirs, along with all who devote themselves to establish synagogues for prayer, as well as those who enter them to pray, and those who provide for their maintenance, wine for Kiddush and Havdalah, food for guests, bread for the hungry, tzedakah for the poor, and shelter for the homeless. And may all of us who faithfully devote ourselves to the needs of the community and the land of Israel feel strengthened in our resolve to build the very best Shomrei Emunah community that we can. And may we be free from sickness and find ways for healing in relationships in our lives that are broken. May God bless us by making all our worthy endeavors prosper, as well as those of the entire people Israel. And may we always feel sheltered beneath the wings of Adonai. And let us say, Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Julie. Okay, so I'm going to give a very brief president's report today. You'll have to bear with me. This is my third presentation of the day on 3 different subjects, so I'm a little drained. But I really want to, first of all, refer you to my letter to the community, which has a little more detail. But and tonight, I think I'm going to focus on 2 themes. I want to focus on a theme that those of you at my Rosh Hashanah speech will recognize, the theme of community and the theme of gratitude. I want to start like Rabbi Julie did, just with a moment of reflection of what's going on in the world, because as I said in my letter, it was hard, I think, sometimes to feel that sense of gratitude, given all that's going on around us, with the Israel and Iran at war, with anti-Semitic and political violence here in the United States, and really just at a really, really basic level, I think the struggles, and not necessarily us here in this community, but outside these walls, the struggles that people have just talking to each other about difficult issues in a civil way. And it feels like we've lost that ability to some extent in our larger community. And so I think that's, although that feels all very heavy to me, it does make me incredibly grateful for this community, because we can, and we've demonstrated, Martin has demonstrated all year, talking about the future of the synagogue, which can be a very difficult topic for people, but we've done it in a civil way. We've started discussions about Israel, and we've been civil about it. So I'm incredibly grateful for this community, not only for our ability to talk to each other in that way and really listen, I think, most of the time, but for our willingness to go beyond that, to step up and actually help each other, to step up and actually help the people in our community around us, and to step up and help Israel and the Jewish people as a whole. I think this community is really a model of those values. And it was really driven home to me this week. Part of something that I've started to do more is try to go to Shivas when I can. And so I went to Brisbas this week with Natalie. And there was a moment I got there a little bit late, rushing from work and what have you, but there was just a really quiet moment when Natalie just really felt surrounded by her community, even though she's not here as much necessarily anymore. And she just commented by how rich and deep this community, and I could just hear people talking to her who've known her for decades, right? And I really think it's hard to underestimate, and those of you who've been here for decades, you may underestimate how special that is. And Natalie actually commented on it, that her children have yet to find a community like this outside of this synagogue. And we're going to talk about some metrics today that will sort of, I think, demonstrate in an objective way that we're thriving right now in a way that so many conservative synagogues are not. And I do think there's a lot of great things. We've got one of them sitting right beside me here. But I really do, I do not think you can underestimate the powerful bonds that our community has, the way that new families are welcomed in here in a very conscious way by Romy and others on the membership committee, Susanna, Ayla, people who joined the school. And it's that stickiness of this community that I think is really at the core of why we are thriving. And so I really just want to acknowledge that and how important that is when the times are really difficult like they are right now. So now I want to turn to focusing more on a sense of gratitude for what this community has accomplished this year. We're going to talk in more detail about two of them. Martin's going to talk about the strategic roadmap, and Bela and Pam are going to talk about, not to be a spoiler alert, but yet another balanced budget, and one that shows us in a very financially healthy position. So I want to focus on a few of the other things that we're not going to spend so much time on this year, but I know many of people in this room have experienced them all directly. I want to talk about our Shabbat services, our wonderful, joyful, soulful Shabbat services, and in particular with the expansion of Shomrei, which was really one of our most successful programs, Shabbat programs when Rabbi Julie joined, and we've now expanded it to Saturday. And I remember I could attend the first one, and I walked in and it felt almost as full as the high holidays by the end of that service. And I think that's an incredible accomplishment. I want to talk about the launch of our, I think, highly successful new Kiddush program, which really married an innovation, having Mustafa here, but yet preserved the joyful nature of the volunteer aspect of it, where volunteers are still participating. And I really, like, of all the things that happens here at the synagogue, I probably at least once or twice on Shabbat, somebody comes up to me and says, Kiddush is really great. You know, so it's like just these small things that I think really have improved people's experience of Shabbat in that way. And I want to really go back to, it seems like decades ago, but the high holiday services, I hope you all remember how packed those were. We were like, I remember I ushered one of the days and I was just cramming people. Hopefully there's no fire marshals here, like every corner, you know, and it was just a joyful, beautiful, packed, energetic high holiday service that managed to survive a biblical flood halfway through, as you all remember. So really the core, yeah, exactly. There's still water stains up there. So I think, you know, the core of every shul, you know, beyond this community and its people are the services, and I think we are successfully innovating and being creative but retaining the core of what makes a conservative and a traditional service. I also want to obviously thank Ayla for our thriving school. Schools, yes, multiple schools. And I don't want to rattle off a bunch of statistics. I just want to say this, is first of all, we're innovating in the school too. We hired a consultant this year who's revamping the JLC curriculum. And, you know, every time Ayla talks about the school and its future, she talks about things that are near and dear to my heart, which is people want more and deeper engagement for their kids, Jewishly learning Hebrew everything. And Ayla's working really hard to deliver that. And the fact that our numbers are still strong and our metrics are still good, especially in the preschool, for many of you who may not be completely plugged into this, but Montclair now has a free community pre-K, and yet our numbers are holding, which means that we are delivering something of value more than that can compete against free. And that is incredible. That's an incredible accomplishment. I think we should all just give Ayla a And I know, and Ayla would be the first to say there's a whole team of people behind her, Leslie and others, who are making this happen. So it is really an amazing team that's actually growing and strengthening year over year. I want to focus very briefly on the Buildings and Grounds Committee, chaired by Eric over there. And really just focus on one thing, is the Easy Shul, which may not sound like the sexiest thing that the synagogue has ever done, but I also, you know, the amount of work and time and creativity and technological duct tape that John Lasseter had to apply to keep everything together, running smoothly, all these systems talking to each other, and then the amount of time he spent helping us transition, and a whole team of people that Eric and John working with to transition to Easy Shul, which we've launched, which really will, I think, make a lot of things easier around here. A lot of, to be honest, it's a tool to serve community, help connect people, help people feel more connected to the synagogue. And it was really a huge accomplishment. And any of those of you who have either launched a new technological platform and been part of that knows the incredible amount of work that goes on behind the scenes. And for every bug that we encounter now, they've already solved for 100 behind the scenes, so we didn't experience it. So a really big thanks to that whole team. I want to give a really big shout out of gratitude to Sarita and our adult ed team, and June and Susanna and Josh for the programming team. Because they have really set a new standard, I think, for both the amount and quality of the programs that have been delivered this year. Sarita, I think I'm pretty plugged into adult ed, as many of you know. It's like one of the things that are most important to me. And yesterday she just drops casually at the board meeting that there's been 153 unique participants at our adult ed programs, which means, assuming a lot of those come from our community, it's almost like 67% of our community have been to at least one adult ed event this year. Which is amazing. I mean, that is a community that's committed to learning, well beyond our bar mitzvahs, which I think is obviously many of our goals. And then, of course, as many of you know, when I'm here, I do the announcements every week, and every week there's just this richness of programming, the midday meetups, the speaker series that have come in, and I can't keep up with all of it, and even if I try, I can't go to all the events, but I hear nothing but good things, and many of them are incredibly well attended. So thank you so much, June and Susanna and Josh. I know couldn't be here tonight. I also want to give a big shout out of gratitude to the Social Action Committee. Risa chaired that committee for 1 year. That was our agreement. She stepped down now, but I think many of you have seen that committee has been incredibly active this year. I mean, Mitzvah Day was the culmination of it, and it was a huge, oversubscribed, resounding success. But all the way through the year, from the moment that committee started working together, they hit the ground running with food drives, clothing drives. I don't know if you've all seen the pictures of them dropping off cartons of goods at the Human Needs Food Pantry. I think we would have done this anyway, but as many of you know, with a lot of the cuts to federal funding, the need in the community around things like housing, refugee support, and food have really spiked this year, and I'm just really proud of this community that we were, we can't fill all the holes, but we were a huge part of at least filling some of it. So a big shout out to the Social Action Committee. And I'm going to round off with a couple more things. First of all, Romy and the membership committee. I'm going to emphasize again, so we grew. It wasn't, we didn't add dozens of people, but it went from like 238 to 244. But you have to understand the headwinds that a lot of the conservative synagogues are facing. And every year over year since Rabbi Julie has come here, we've grown every single year. And, when we were talking about this at the board meeting, the first thing Susanna said is like, okay, how are we going to get more people in? We're going to get those preschool. There's so much energy, especially amongst the young families, to bring in new people and to get them into membership quickly. But I see the new membership list that they come across, and it's a pretty diverse. We get people from all demographics that are coming to join our synagogue, maybe because they're conservative, or maybe because of word of mouth, maybe because of many people sitting in the room who, when someone's like, I'm looking for a synagogue, you're like, I got a synagogue for you. So it's really, really heartening to see this slow but steady growth, and we, I don't know if we're going to say it out loud, but we've got targets, and we're becoming increasingly optimistic we'll be able to grow, but in a thoughtful, organic way that really preserves the soul of the community, so we don't become, a giant mega synagogue, but instead one that really maintains that core of who we are. And the very last thing I'll finish with is giving and fundraising, because I think everyone in this room gives a lot of their time, a lot of their attention, sends their kids here, have sent their kids here. So we all give that part, but I think without money, without fundraising, obviously the synagogue cannot thrive. And we are not done our Sustaining Share campaign yet this year, but I can tell you we are already at $673,000, which is only $8,000 short of what our overall target was, and we've only got 64% of people contributing. So this has been an incredibly successful Sustaining Share, which first and foremost is because of every single person in this room who, when they heard what Martin had to say about the strategic plan, or they heard what Rabbi Julie had to say about her exciting vision from the synagogue, said, you know what, I want to make Shomrei a financial priority, or in many cases, more of a financial priority than I'm already making it. And I'm very, very hopeful that we're going to exceed our targeted budget this year, which means that some of the things in the strategic plan we may get to implement a little earlier, will make the synagogue that much more vibrant, that much better, that much able to reach out to more people in the community, and that is incredibly exciting. And a couple of things I want to say, especially for many, I look around here and I say many people who've been on the board before and know some of the realities of it. So I do want to say that One of our targets was to get a couple really concrete targets. We wanted to get more people giving at $10,000 or higher. And I can't remember, what was the number that you said? We went from
12 to 21.
12 to 21. But I think equally importantly, we've expanded the number of people under the age of 60 giving at that level, which has been something we've been focused on support for a while. So there's a lot of members, longtime members here have really been, in hard times keeping the synagogue afloat, and even now have been the most significant contributors. We're now seeing the next generation stepping up, and we're going to keep focusing on that, because obviously the synagogue is not sustainable if we don't have the next generation and the next generation stepping up and committing to the synagogue financially. Another one of our targets is we want to get more people at a sustaining share level, which, based on our calculations this year, was $3,600. And we are seeing many more people hit that level as well. We still have more work to do there, but I think our goal here is to explain to people exactly how the synagogue works, the operations, and why that number is important to hit, and to exceed if you can, so that people who cannot hit that number can still attend here without any financial barriers, which again is absolutely fundamental to our core values here, is that nobody is turned away because they can't afford it. But that requires those of us who can give more to give more, and again, I am incredibly pleased to report that is happening. So that is just another sign of the commitment of people at the synagogue. So we have a final push, so if you haven't given, expect to hear from your friendly neighborhood board member very soon, reminding you it's time to pledge. But I can't be more thrilled by how it's gone so far, by all the work of Rabbi Julie and Martin and John Lassiter and Pam and Bela and Alan Epstein. We are forming a core nucleus of fundraisers who I think are really going to help us be really more innovative and creative in fundraising. I'm very excited for the future. So with that, thank you all for coming. Thank you to the whole team. I was going to ask, I love when Rabbi Julie and Barb and Benema, so she said, okay, everybody stand up, but we're a little sparse here, so I just want to say thank you to Rabbi Julie, our new director of Melissa. We're there, Melissa is doing a wonderful job. We threw her in the deep end. We're like, you're going to come in, you're going to deal with easy shul and fundraising, all this stuff, and go. She's done an amazing job. Ayla, obviously. I am going to ask, if you don't mind, all the board members, can you stand up, please? I know it's like half the audience, but I am privileged to work with each and every one of them. They all put in a huge amount of work, and we are really privileged as a community that they volunteered to step up and serve. And finally, I look around this room and I see a lot of our core volunteers here. I see a lot of our people who attend almost every service. And so really just a big thank you to you, because without you, the synagogue doesn't function, it doesn't work, it doesn't thrive. So thank you so much.
I want to also add a word of thanks to you, Aaron Delaney, for serving as president this year, the first of your 3-year term. It's not an easy role, both in terms of time commitment and in terms of shouldering responsibility. And we have accomplished so much this year thanks to your leadership. So let's give it up for Aaron Delaney.
All right, well, with that, we're going to move on to the next part of our agenda. So I'm going to turn it over to Martin, who's going to present on the strategic roadmap that the board approved last night.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all. So as Aaron mentioned, the document that is in your packet, Strategic Roadmap and Implementation Proposal, is the document that the board approved in a unanimous vote last night. It's a slim document. It's only 2.5 pages, but it's really the culmination of a huge amount of effort over 18 months involving a lot of people, including I think almost everybody in this room who attended a town hall or attended the annual meeting last year and helped give feedback on the draft vision, or had a one-on-one conversation with someone along the way. I do want to particularly thank the rabbi and Aaron and Ayla and Ehud and Miriam Hames and Shirley Grill, who were sort of the core group working on this over that period. So, the roadmap is just that. It's a document, a set of goals that will provide some direction to align our major efforts over the next 3 to 5 years into a set of activities that we believe, based on all of this work, will have a great impact on helping us to more fully realize the vision of Shomrei as a place that's joyful, soulful, and inspiring, where we are deeply engaged with Judaism, each other, and our communities, where we're committed to justice, compassion, and kindness, and where we demonstrate our passion about the Jewish people. So we have adopted 5 strategic goals that are organized around those themes, and the document lays them out. So the first strategic goal is to celebrate Shabbat and holidays as a focal point of our Jewish lives at home and at synagogue. The second is to become a destination for compelling Jewish learning at all stages of life, engaging our members and attracting participants from the broader Montclair community. The third is to mobilize members to engage in the sacred task of volunteering to help Shomrei fulfill its mission while leveraging their talents and interests and connecting them to each other. Fourth goal is to create a welcoming and inclusive community for interfaith families and individuals of all backgrounds who want to connect to our Shomrei family. And the fifth goal is to strengthen our commitment to Jewish peoplehood at home and abroad. Under each of these goals, there are a set of implementation directions. These are, in some cases, higher level, in other cases, more concrete ideas for how we can carry these goals forward, how we can really advance these goals. The next stage, as the rabbi mentioned, is to work on an implementation plan, and a lot of those items under the goals will become part of that plan. Some will be, are very shovel ready, and we can get into them right away and put them on the calendar for the coming year. Thanks to the great Sustaining Share fundraise this year, there may be more of those than we had initially thought, but others will need more development and planning and will take longer, and we'll put them into the plan for later. The implementation planning is going to kick off this summer, and you'll see on the last page there are a set of points that the board approved as guidance for the president and his designees in working up through the implementation planning. A lot of these, I want to say, are responsive to the feedback that we got in the recent town halls, which were incredibly helpful in getting us over the finish line with this. So you'll see that the planning should include goals, milestones, budget needs, and success metrics. It should ensure that we have the staff capacity and clear scope of responsibility to fulfill the goals. It should ensure that the implementation plans are financially sustainable, so we're not going to set out to do something without having a way to pay for it, and ensure that there's regular reporting to both the board and the congregation as a whole, so you can all expect to receive an update next year at the annual meeting, if not before then, on how things are progressing. So that's it. It's, as I think I said at one of the town hall meetings, we've reached the end of the beginning, and now we can, go to the middle, start the middle. But I think, as Aaron and the rabbi both said, I think just getting to this point has been it's a huge accomplishment, and it's been a great learning journey for me. It's been a great way for me to understand the shul and the congregation in a way that I haven't in my 44 years of being a member here before that. And so I want to thank you all, not only for your contributions, but for helping to make this a great and really positive experience for me.
So we're happy to take a few questions. If anybody has questions for Martin or anyone else.
Moving right along.
Well, I'm going to say one thing, because I'm going to channel Fern here, because this is an issue last year's about the interface. So this is one of the strategic goals you can see here. And I'm not sure if we've given a more complete update to the community, but I just wanted to tell you that Dan Winter is going to be working closely with Julie to set up a process to discuss the issue of non-Jewish faith membership. And so, just to address head-on, we're very aware of the last time this came up that it created some conflict in the community. But this time we're going to have a more extended education process, a thoughtful engagement. So I'm hopeful we're able to bring a resolution to the congregation before the next annual meeting. That's Dan's goal, that we would have to call a special meeting of the congregation potentially. If we don't get there, forgive us. That just means we need more time to talk about it as a community. But we are planning to engage in a thoughtful community. We're not going to have a whole community room, but we're going to have education sessions, breakout groups, focus groups. There's Dan and Rabbi Julia working on a consultative framework. But I just want to report back on that because I know I made a commitment at the last annual meeting, and so I want to report back that is moving forward. As I anticipated, the strategic planning took up a lot of the oxygen this year for the board, but we didn't lose sight of this, and Dan and Rabbi are on top of it and moving forward. So please look out for more information about that. Okay. Thank you very much, Martin. So I'm going to move one chair over. Pam, you're going to come up and...
Can everybody hear me, or would you prefer I use the mic?
Use the mic.
Is that better? Is the mic on?
Yeah.
Here we go. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So at the board meeting last night, we went into a somewhat detailed discussion about the budget that we pulled together. You've all been sent, as has the entire congregation, a write-up that I prepared. I think a couple of highlights to note are that we are in the process of implementing, besides Easy Shul, a whole new accounting and tracking system to better organize our expenses and our revenues in a way that will be more transparent to the stakeholders and will allow us to increase regular reporting to those people that are managing programs. So we'll actually know where we are along the road as we spend the money and can better manage requests for items that were not thought of at the time but are critical to continuing the growth that we've been talking about. I think Aaron's already addressed the sustaining share issue, so I'm not going to touch on that. What I will do just briefly is talk about the overall revenue and expense. In 2024, as you may recall, we did have a surplus, and in the 2025 budget, we had taken $36,700 of that surplus and rolled it into the 2025 budget to help support some one-time programs and other expenses. In 2026, in doing the budget, we needed to take much of the surplus in 2025, which is about $121,000, and roll that into the 2026 budget to give us a de minimis surplus of about $2,000. What's I think most important is, and this is a budget that doesn't take into account the news we just heard today, which is that we're about to hit our sustaining share budget target with 65% of the community responding. If you look at revenues year over year, excluding that rollover, we're basically flat, but our expenses in the 2026 budget are approximately $200,000 higher. And I'm going to walk through very briefly where the major increases are so that you guys can have an understanding of how we're investing in the future. The first area is religious life. We've consolidated religious life, high holidays, and other holidays into one new category. And $44,000 of that is for an additional staff person to help the rabbi develop the programs and the things that we're doing. And the other $11,000 is additional expenses that the programming folks have asked for to run events that they may have asked for last year that we didn't spend, but they're hoping to actually do this year. So that accounts for about $58,000 in total. JLC expenses have grown dramatically, primarily because we've added a full-time assistant ed director for a full year. We've also given raises to the staff and increased the hours of the staff. Plus, we're adding some new staff in 2025, which will come to about 20,000. So with $57,000 for raises, more time, and the full year assistant director, that covers about $80,000 of the difference. The third area I'll touch on is administration. We're investing $12,500 in Easy Shul consultation costs to help implement the program, and I think Eric and Pam and John will say that every penny of that is worth what we're spending. And then there are just some other minor staffing increases that have been tracked in that administration bucket for about $25,000. Everything else is a little plus here, a little minus there. For another $40,000, it gets us to about the $200,000 increase. So that's sort of a top-level way of looking at it. You've seen the detail at the next level down in the document that Pam and I prepared. Pam, anything you want to add? Aaron, Rabbi, anybody want to add anything?
I just want to say one thing. It's more of a process issue. So, normally I think we would get the budget out a little earlier than we did, but I just want to ask for grace a little bit from the community because of the transition to Easy Shul. And we also, we've been working with a part-time controller who helped. I'm going to say something I know nothing about, but they helped us totally revamp the class system so to make our accounting much cleaner and easier to manage. So we're basically updating and professionalizing the internal systems, but with Ehud leaving and some of the transition, Pam and Dale have been working really incredibly hard to get this done, but we're just a little behind schedule. So I just wanted to say, like, next year we will get the budget out earlier so people have more time to spend with it. But there was extenuating circumstances this year that, and I really just can't thank Pam and Dale enough for how much work they put in to get the budget delivered to the board yesterday.
Please, Jessica, for the air conditioning. Yeah, we're trying.
That's not in the budget, Jerry.
We can afford it. Put much more money in.
It's on. It's cooling down.
It'll be cool by the time we leave. It'll be
Yeah.
perfect.
Jerry?
I just wanted to understand the $120,000 surplus. It looks like you rolled it from 24 to 25. And even though you're using some of it, you roll it again into 26. The whole thing, you roll it to 26. I mean, it looks like this 120 just keeps rolling through. Am I misreading this?
No, we
I'm not applying it, but then it shows up at the end anyway.
it's the amazing thing the way numbers work, isn't it? So if you go back to the 2024 actual, we had a surplus north of $100,000. And in order to make the 2025 budget work, we said we're going to take $36,700 of that surplus, and we're going to roll it as revenue. Remember, we don't get audited. We don't have to use U.S. GAAP accounting. Normally, your profit would go into retained earnings, and you would just show a deficit, but you say, well, but I made money last year, so I'll cover it that way. We're trying to show something that more is easier to understand in terms of operations. So now we get to the end of 2025, and we say, oh, we have $121,000 surplus, and yes, that includes a roll of $36,700 from 2024. So we took 120 of that 121, which includes that 36.7, and we rolled it into 2026 so that we could present a balanced budget. So net, if we had taken out that $37,000 instead of having $120,000 surplus this year, we would have been, $30,000 less. But it gets us to the same place. The point is that we've been able to produce surplus actuals versus budgets the past 2 years, and we're using that surplus to support the community. Did that answer your question?
I'm not sure, but I believe.
And I just want to add on that since our sustaining share is going very strongly and we think it'll continue to exceed goal because everyone's going to be really generous, we could reduce that surplus contribution based on the amount of money that's going to come in through sustaining share is the hope. And we'll just keep that surplus in the back pocket.
Yeah, David and Todd.
Will the result of surplus mean we will increase programming this year?
Yes, the
Yes.
budget has increased cost for programming, for holidays, there's adult ed, there are a number of items that are in there that we're supporting
And
this year.
Israel program.
Israel program.
Even beyond what you're budgeting for?
No, that's what's in the budget.
That's what's in the budget.
So it-
That's partly, if we took all of that out, we would have a much smaller, if you will, roll of a surplus to cover a break-even budget.
But we wanted to be able to provide all the programming that everybody requested, so that's why we went through that. If we wind up with more revenue, then we can, and if there's more programming that people want to propose, then we can go ahead and fund that. We've done that every year. Somebody comes to us and says, we'd like to do X, Y, Z, and we're like, yeah, we'll find the money for that. So we're not going to, we always want to continue to grow the programming and the offerings of the school.
So if you come up with more revenue, then Jerry can look forward to another $120,000.
That's right, exactly.
Right, I mean, obviously, if we hit the targets that we could hit based on the projections, we would not need to roll anything over into this year, and we probably still have a surplus. We don't know where it's going to shake out. We're early in the budget process and late in the SSFC process, and people have been generous.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that, you know, this budget is a balance between growth and conservative. And so when we look at the strategic plan, there are other things that we want to do. It's a question of if and when. So it's going to be a balance between the conservative preservation of surplus, if we have it, and the addition of initiatives that we might have otherwise not been able to afford.
Yeah, and I want to partly address Jerry, your question, and David. So, to the simple, I'm a lawyer. You know, we're lawyers. We don't really understand this stuff. So, basically, we're not spending as much money as we're taking in every year. I mean, to put it crudely, we have money in the bank at the end of every year, and instead of, we have significant reserves already. We have reserves for rainy day, for a bunch of things sitting in the bank. So instead of banking the money left over at the end of the year, we're reinvesting it in the next year's budget. That's just, it's not, there's no magic here. It's just like, crudely, we have money in the bank at the end of the year. Instead of sticking it in like, you know, an endowment or something like that, we're just reinvesting it into the next budget.
But the 26 budget assumes that you're not going to spend it at the end of the day.
No, it
just
does.
says it will.
If we spend every penny that is in this allocated and we don't take in any more money that's allocated, we will spend the whole surplus. Todd, and that's next, yeah.
Yes, I think it's on the same vein, but what we're really saying is if our revenues come in as, you know, budgeted, and our expenses are as budgeted, we actually have a $120,000 deficit.
It's actually
which is being
200,000.
funded.
It's actually 200,000.
Well, no, because you're using 120.
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Right.
The net, the deficit's 120. So what that means to me is unless we come in higher on the revenue side or somewhere during the year spend less money, the following year, if we were going to just keep things flat, we'll have a shortfall because we don't have the surplus anymore. So that's what I mean. So it's like a structural deficit, which is currently being funded by the prior year's surplus.
So that is 100% correct. And I think Michael sort of framed the budget last year as we invested in bringing in a new rabbi, and we have chosen as a board to invest in trying to grow. And we are taking some minimal financial risk in the sense of we can cover this year's budget. We actually decided as a board last year that we were prepared to run small deficit budgets if it meant investing and growing, and we would check, you know, every year or so, because we have significant reserves to cover shortfalls. So we're not taking any overall financial risk because we can have the reserves to cover it. And if in a year or two that we were finding exactly what you're seeing, Todd, is that our expense, we weren't able to roll forward any surplus, and our expenses were exceeding our revenues, then we would readjust. And so, but I do want to say for those of you who know Penn and Bailey, they budget very conservatively, and we do tend to come in lower than expenses and higher in revenue than we are anticipating. So we as a board are comfortable that we're not taking any financial risk, but we are incredibly mindful of the long-term issue that you highlighted, Todd, that we will not permit as a board to run year-over-year structural deficits, so we're very mindful of the issue.
Alan?
What is the ERTC fund?
That's the employment retention
COVID.
After COVID, we got money for keeping our employees fully employed, and so we got several $100,000 for that, whatever that number is.
Net of our fee, it was 367, and it's grown based on money market up to almost 400. Sorry, we received 367,000 after fees from the folks that did the filing for us, and that has grown since then with interest in a money market account up to almost 400,000.
That's cash.
That's cash sitting in the bank.
In addition to the capital campaign.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
this is a follow-up to that. Why are we calling it an ERT slip fund? Isn't it really-
We're not calling it anything, that's
Isn't it
just the source of the capital, we haven't had
Isn't
it.
it just a rainy day fund at this point?
The money came from the ERTC
I know, but
program, so
that's-
that's how we classify
We
it.
haven't had a conversation with the board yet about how to use it, so we're just
I understand, but
identifying
in
it.
effect, it's a rainy day or
We don't know what it
available
is.
funds.
It's available funds, but we
Yes, it is.
categorize it by where we got it from, so we can keep track of it separately.
It is a happy circumstance that in the next year, the board is now going to have to look at these and like think about are we being most effective with it. So I love to have that problem.
Jerry said you had a question?
Yeah, unrelated.
Oh, no, Jerry.
It looks like the preschool expenses and income are projected to be down next year, so what does that reflect?
They
You
want
wanna
to
take
go
that?
back to preschool being down.
Expenses down? Expenses are lower because we've been very conservative with our spending. We were nervous about the climate with Montclair having free preschool. We cut back on frivolous things that we've been spending money on because we were making a lot of money with aftercare. Last year, we had much fewer kids enrolled in aftercare from year to year. It's really amazing what the market wants. Our constituents go from wanting full day, their children here from 8 in the morning until 5:30 and begging us to stay open until 6:30, to a year where we have a lot of nannies and parents don't want aftercare. So it's really hard to predict from year to year what people are going to want. This coming year, we happen to have more families who want aftercare and before care. So we've just been really careful with what we're spending, erring on the side of caution. We've had lower enrollment, so we've reduced the number of hours staff need to be here. We really try to balance. We've been lucky not to have to lay off any staff or let any staff go. We've just sort of shifted the way their time here is spent. We had two teachers this past year who were out on medical leave, and so we don't offer much in the way of compensation for medical, so we were also able to save a little bit of money and sort of redistribute staff. We do try to keep a floater, so that's already built into our budget. So then if we have one staff out, we're able to sort of redeploy that person.
And I would say, I mean, many of you know I was the board chair of the co-op, so I did school budgeting for 7 years. School budgeting is like the hardest thing to do because you're trying to project revenues and costs like way in advance of when you actually know your enrollment. Preschool enrollment is incredibly variable. There's a lot of factors that go into it. So, I mean, Jerry, honestly, from like a school budgeting perspective, essentially we're flat year over year. There's some variation, but it's well within a band that you would expect. And typically we'll get some pickup, you know.
We're assuming more or less full enrollment like the rest.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had 48 last year and we're like 45 this year. So we're essentially flat on enrollment. Expenses are slightly down, so we're in good shape.
And I think people should understand that other schools in this environment are seeing significant reductions in their enrollment. And so it's really a tribute to the quality of our preschool and the innovation within our preschool to anticipate the changes in the market that we're remaining flat in this environment.
Jay.
The building is 30 years old now? About 30 years old, at least since the development. So I say that as a preface as to the question, is there a CapEx budget that you look at?
So we are in the process of working with Eric and developing a capital expense budget for many projects in the shul. We have the capital campaign funds to help support much of that, but we did not have a capital budget prepared at this time, and we have ideas of what are happening. I don't know, Eric, if you want to address anything?
No, nothing specific that I would want to comment on and have to be sort of stuck to. It ties back to the strategic plan. I mean, there's basic things like the roof is incredibly old, so we have to take care of the roof. The bathrooms need probably got renovated. But a larger plan, of course, would be a broader assessment of the longer-term viability of the building itself.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the budget? Yeah, and also, Jay, to answer that also, is that we were 100% focused on this budget, and then we just didn't have the bandwidth to do any more, so it was honorable to tackle that. Plus, we couldn't ask Melissa for any more help.
All right, well, noting the time, unless anyone has a question.
One more question.
Okay.
There's a big fund for the single user fund.
Yes.
And how,
No one's allowed to ask questions about the same.
fine.
No, we can go offline.
It's a restricted fund
Yeah.
that when Eric passed away, Rita and Eric donated approximately $225,000 into a restricted fund.
No. The question is, you've got a fund, a music fund, but then there's revenues and expenses related to musical programs. I would think, unless the fund is restricted, you can't.
It's restricted. It's very restricted for a specific concert around November.
Right, so we have in the budget $6,000 of revenue and $6,000 of expense. To the extent ticket sales don't cover the revenue, we will move money from that fund into the operating budget to make it a break even. That's what we've done for the last 3 or 4 years.
Have there been considerations to discussing amending the fund?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We look forward to having more conversations with you about that, Alan.
You can join the club, Alan.
One recommendation is that when we have a good performer, I don't think you have to get a different one the following year. Because actually, I believe it's part of, it has to be a local performer, it has to be new performers. That's what I believe Rita told me.
Well, let me, there's a lot around this, let's just move on, trust me, move on. It's, first of all, the fund's being properly managed, it's being done, allocated for what it needs to be. The exact issue you raise, Alan, is one that we continue to raise with the donors, so we'll keep working on it. Okay, if everybody's okay, I'm gonna move on to the voting part of the agenda. I'm gonna ask our individual chair of the nominating committee to come up and present this year's slate.
Hi, everyone. Oh, can you hear me? I'll speak louder into the mic. The last 3 pages of the packet that you got, and especially on the back page, highlight in bold the board composition that's shifting this year. Susanna has agreed to become the co-VP of programming. Thanks, Susanna. Susanna's bio is not in here, like the other 4 new board members that are coming on board, but hopefully you know her. She is a lovely, wonderful human who has volunteered in many, many different capacities, and I think found a niche in programming and making events happen at the synagogue. So I'm very delighted that she's agreed to step up in this way and partner with Jude on programming for the upcoming year. Beryl is being renewed for 1 year. She's not new, but it's a change in slot. And Shirley, who had a 1-year term that she took over from someone else, is renewing for a 2-year term. And then we have 4 new board members. And I hope that you'll get a chance to meet them. I'm sure many of the people in this room know Judy already. Judy's back there. Hi, Judy. Who has agreed. It was very funny. In the nominating committee, we had a really long debate about whether Judy had ever served on the board before. Someone texted her, and she was like, "Yes, I definitely did." But welcome back to the board, Judy. Assuming everybody.
People who shall remain nameless are like, no, she was never on the board. So we'll never tell them.
They'll never admit it. They'll never admit it. Mike Friedman, if you guys don't know Mike Friedman, he has been really a core member of the Younger Family Group for the last few years. You might recall, I hope you recall, in the midst of pandemic, he said, I want to spearhead a Pizza in the Hut event. And he took a leadership seat putting that event together. He took a massive amount of responsibility and turned it into something that was ever so slightly profitable for us, and I believe has been a key player in redoing that event year after year. And he finds, yes, and he's been on the Ed Committee for years and years, and he finds ways around the community to participate and actively asks, where can I support what's going on at the synagogue? So I'm very, very delighted to have another young voice on the board of directors, one that's already proven that he's deeply engaged and deeply committed to the community here. Kelly Mason, many of you hopefully have met Kelly. She's another, actually both Kelly and Jenny are younger parents in the community, but have both emerged as not only people that have a hunger for deeper engagement, but also have, I don't want to say, the skill sets that the synagogue was seeking. We were looking for someone that maybe had some ability to help with HR at the synagogue. Kelly Mason is an HR professional, and she agreed that not only would she join the board because she feels passionate about the community here, but also lend her skill set to helping us emerge out of Shirley, who's currently essentially our sole HR human, to something that functions a little more properly and cycles people in and out of that group every year. Plus, new perspectives never hurt. Jenny, honestly, I don't know Jenny that well. I've met her a couple of times, but she's very nice. She's really lovely. And I believe that she's got a lot of thoughts sorry? I don't, Jerry, stop it. I believe that she's got a lot of passion for this community, especially around young families. Romy, I'm not sure how old her kids are.
Her kids are in kindergarten, going into first grade, and her little one is going into pre-K.
Yeah, and I can say, so Jenny's got a marketing background and has already been helping out with that. She helped with the ad journal and Art Mazel. She's got little kids at home, is always like, I am too busy, I can't do anything, and then she does the thing anyway, so she's really amazing.
I've known Jenny since she was born.
Oh,
amazing.
Right.
Jenny is a wonderful person. She's extremely energetic, and she does have a marketing background. She also ran the Women's Theater last year. And she got that underway.
She's on the Israel. Yeah, she loves
it. And she's very interested in all things Jewish. So I think she's an amazing asset in addition to the board. So
A really good addition.
she's amazing. She's wonderful.
And before we move to vote, I just want to say that this newest batch is emblematic of a lot of the work that our committee chairs have been doing. We've really been talking a lot over the last couple of years about succession planning and bringing in new people to the board. And this is really the second crop of people who've really been engaged with committees. It used to always just be the education committee, and now it's a little broader. So I feel very, very good about our pipeline, and we've even got people we decided not to approach this year, keep them involved in other things, and we're going to approach them in the coming years. So I feel very good about board renewal as well.
And I want to add to what Aaron just said and share that the process that we're using for the nominating committee this year, perhaps for the first time this year, was actually to use some of the tools that I use in my full-time job. We did a very casual gap analysis of what's the skill sets that we needed, that we could bring into the board, how are the age demographics, what are the groups of people that don't have a voice on the board, what are the groups of people that can lend skills that they have professionally to the board, and really drilled down, found 4 new members that we thought could add significantly to the board of directors, and went after them. And in the case of Mike, I'd say he was very eager to join. I think he's wanted to join for a few years, so I'm excited about that. And the others, we just said, your name came up, and they were all immediately like, yes, I will do this thing. Well, I don't know if immediately. Aaron spoke with them as well, but from my perspective, they all seemed pretty eager to get involved.
Yeah, with Judy, we found out she had some time between the hours of midnight and 1 a.m. that she was doing something, so we thought, we'll take it.
We'll do it. We'll do it. I'm not going to go name by name, but I do want to thank the members of the nominating committee. It was a very smooth process, just 5 or 6 meetings this year to talk about candidates, and I feel like it's laying the groundwork for a smooth process in future years, so I'm very grateful to the group of people around me.
I make a motion that we accept the slate.
Can I get a second?
Thank you, Carol. Put your
All,
hand up. That was Sarita in the back. Thank you, Sarita.
all in favor of adopting this slate as proposed this year? Anyone opposed? Abstain? Carried unanimously. Thank you so much. All right, so that concludes tonight's business, so I can get a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn, and please stay for a few minutes for me to get my
I'll second. I know no one's opposed, so I'll turn it over to Carol for the Cemetery Association.
Let's see how fast I can get this stuff, guys.
Timing.
You never know. Okay, I would like to call the meeting to order. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the June 24, 2024 annual meeting? Have a motion, a vote. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Anybody abstentions? We're done. Okay. Seriously, I would like to thank Michael Sagg for quickly learning the workings of the Cemetery Association and his support for this year. It has been a quiet year, not like the previous year. There have been 4 interments, 2 monument permits, 22, you know more, okay. 2 graves sold, and there are some grave purchase inquiries pending. Please remember that if you are looking for interfaith graves, call me. I have all the information that's needed if you are interested in looking about interfaith graves. Also, one of the first questions a funeral director asks is, where is the cemetery? So it makes it a lot simpler and easier if you have the answer ahead of time. Yes, if you need graves, and I've been known to sell graves in 6 hours, in 24 to 48 hours when it's necessary, but it makes everybody's life, especially the families, if you already have your graves. Any questions? Good. Oh, sorry about that. May I have a motion to nominate the following officers? President, Carol Katzman. Secretary, Michael Sagg. Treasurer, Ayla Winter.
What?
And that's an interesting story, how I found, how Ayla became part of it.
I will move just so we can hear the story.
Okay.
All in favor?
Hey, it's my meeting. Any nominations from the floor? None? May I have a vote? All in favor? Any opposed? Don't you dare. Don't you dare. Any abstentions? Good, we have it. Is there any other business? May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
My God, I think I broke my last record.
All right. You're done. Thank you so much, everyone.